Silas, I know you got things to say, Silas. They will only be able to hear you. I will post the video version of Silas's conversation later, okay? Like I did yesterday. Silas, what's going on?
What's going on, Kempire? How you
How are
doing?
you?
I'm doing well. I know Jasmine was here, not too long ago, and she told me she enjoyed your reviews and you keeping it real. And I watched some stuff, and I was like, yeah, he keeps it real, So let me go on and have a chat with him, and so I'm here to to talk out some things. I think the first thing I want to say is, um, how I talked to Jasmine like during that time, like is unacceptable, right? And I think, it was hard watching, right? And
Mhm.
because I got angry, I was like, man, who is that talking to my wife like that, right? And it's like, no, but that's me, right? Even though that's the time, that's me, and I had to own up to it. And I think my folks from New York would know this. Like, I was wilding, like I was straight up wilding, even like with Jason and the table, and there's so many things that I'm looking at, and that I'm like, man, if I could take a chill pill and relax during that time, I would. But I'm reliving it now, and it's time to own up to what happened.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate, but a lot of people are going to say, "Well, you're saying that now because of fan backlash."
Mm.
Did you feel this way after this whole experience ended, or are you feeling this way now that you're watching it back only?
Oh, Jasmine and I started couples therapy after the engagement.
Okay.
And then we took a hiatus when I went off the training for about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
We restarted couples therapy right after filming. And I kid you not, like it was hard. It was very hard because what I remembered, what went down in the house, what she remembered was totally different. And I think we had to get to the point where it's like, babe, I can see your perspective, and I can see how I can change and I can grow on that. And my therapist has kept it real to me. Silas, look, there's a lot of things that I think helped you when you were younger, right? Like structure, like planning, like taking responsibility, and like doing things a certain way. But understand you have to let go of some of those things as you get older, especially when you're in a shared space, and you meet other folks that don't necessarily understand that, and or when it just doesn't do you any good in that situation.
Mm.
I just wish I had a chance to relax more, honestly. And I think one thing that the viewers don't get a chance to see, I'm actually next to a mirror. I'm the youngest guy in the house, right? And so like here I am, right, playing this dad role. And I think you see some of that frustration when I'm like, I don't want to deal with this stuff, especially with the poop. It's like, and I was working two jobs at the time, and but look,
Okay.
context is important, but I don't want to sound like I'm giving any excuses.
Yeah.
I was how I talked to Jasmine was out of control, and there's really no excuse for that. And I needed to watch this as hard as it was because I needed to see where that low light, that bottom is, because
Mm.
I can only grow from here.
What has been your response to what everyone has been, because you've been called everything under the sun by now, based on what people have seen on the show. And I always remind folks that you're also watching an edited show. So they're only showing you what they want to show you.
Right.
Do you feel like it's an accurate depiction of where you were at that point?
Yeah, look, I'm not one to say, woe is me, editors, that's not really my thing. I think the biggest thing for me is to understand that, however, whichever format they put those words, they still came out of my mouth,
Hmm.
and they shouldn't have, right? And I think that that's one thing I had to grapple with, is that those words shouldn't even, I shouldn't even thought about it, right? One of the funniest things about, and there's nothing funny about this situation, but one thing to highlight is the exchange about the clothes, for example. So she was the outfit that I had on to the brunch. I literally changed like twice because the first fit I had, she was like, "That's a no go," and then I changed. Sorry, voice is a little hoarse. Um, and we went back and forth. She was like, "Babe, how do you feel about this fit? How do you feel about these shoes?" So that's the context that was missing. There's that
Mm.
we were talking back and forth outfits, but when it came off, it's like, man, he's just telling her. But trust, wifey, what I'm wearing right now. She picked it up. So that's important to
Oh,
understand.
definitely. I'm glad you explained that. And what has been your reaction to everyone's reaction to you? Because I have to say, probably the biggest reaction that we've seen besides Bria is to the Coopers being on the show, between the sex scenes and how they feel about your almost very traditional relationship. What's been your reaction to all of that?
Look, I think the biggest thing is to understand where folks are coming from, right? So, I'm never one, and I've heard the controlling things, right? I've gotten every name from on DMs from A to Z, and I get it. And I never want to be defensive. I think it's important to give context and full story. So, um, and I think a lot of your viewers who are of African descent would understand this, that like the oldest son in the African household from a young age, you really take on a lot of responsibility, right? So
Mm.
when my pops was away, like I was responsible for everybody in the house. And so some of that stuff that has done well for me, you see some of that stuff. And to folks, it may come off controlling. And I totally understand that. And I understand that on vacation, especially, that's a no-go, right? And there's some things to tweak. But yeah, I respect and understand everyone's upbringing. And yeah, it doesn't offend me. I think it's just important to understand where it's coming from. And ultimately, I love this woman a lot. Jazz is she really is our planner, our organizer, our visionary of like our life and how it, unfolds. And I just try my best to do my part. Which, by the way, like, I heard folks say about, well, like, was she homeless prior to this woman? And Mariah went through a traumatic experience, but that experience had ended literally 3 years prior to us meeting.
Okay.
So the Jasmine I met was very dynamic, very funny, such a planner, had great amount of friends whom you see in the house, right? And so that's the Jasmine I know. And I think that I hope as time goes by, folks get a chance to see that Jasmine.
Would you refer to you as, because that's been the one word that people have used in describing you, as controlling? Would you
Yeah.
say that at that point during filming and in your relationship that there was some controlling behavior?
Oh, watching it now, Kempire, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. There's no there, like, especially with the table with Jason, right? Like when I watched that scene and Jason and I spoke, I called him. I'm like, man, was it really that bad? He kept it real with me. He kept it real with me. And I think, and the folks around me hold me accountable, right? And I think that that's what's important. I called my father-in-law yesterday and just to give him the heads up, like, hey, I just like I called you to ask for Jasmine's hand in marriage, you're going to see an episode. And, there's going to be some stuff on there. And, you need to know that your son-in-law is a work in progress.
Mm.
And it's important that 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 place where we were is shown, because that's also important for me to know the truth in order to develop and grow from. So I completely get the narrative. And yes, I do think at the time I displayed some controlling behavior. Like,
And your conversation with Jason in regards to, nice guys finish last, where,
yeah,
because it's very easy for you now, based on everyone's reaction, to be like, oh, I don't really believe that. But in that moment, let's go back to that moment. What
right.
were you trying to say to Jason in regards to nice guys finishing last, and specifically in reference to Jason and what he felt like he was bringing to his life as a man and women?
Yeah. So look, Jason, and I think some folks know this, like Jason was one of my groomsmen, right? And he was at my bachelor party, and like he's like a brother that I gained from Jasmine. So what they saw on the camera was literally a continuation of bro talk that we have all the time. And didn't get a chance to see the full scope. But essentially it's something I mentioned to him before, which is whenever, like, so I've been as a wingman in some situations, and I think the biggest, it is like the biggest compliment he gets, which is somewhat of a compliment, is, oh my God, he's so nice, and oh, he's so caring. And I'm like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, right? And I tell him all the time that that's a good thing. And I think he's expressed to me that, like growing up in Chicago, there's this misconception that if a guy is lighter skinned and he shows a lot of EQ, that for some reason it's not masculine, right? And I told him before, like, listen, never let anybody question your masculinity. Like, it's important for all spectrums of masculinity to exist. And what we had a chance to reiterate on that table is like, bro, Like, it's okay to be, I was saying folks always say nice guys finish last, right? So I was kind of reiterating some of the critiques that I've heard, he's heard. But I think the biggest takeaway from that conversation is that how Jason is and who he is in this world has always been more than enough, and he's loved and cared for it.
So, speaking of your relationships with the other guys in this house, I
Yeah.
have to talk about your relationship, your line brother, Preston.
Yeah.
You guys have
LB.
had a few challenging moments already this season. Any more challenging moments that we should expect coming up?
Man, there's gonna be some fun moments. You're gonna see my fit for Pride Night, right? And you're gonna see Preston in his because the Preston I know is a host, right? Like, he is the life of the party. You show up, he's ready to turn up, and I can't wait for viewers to see that side and to get to know more of him, right? One of my areas of growth that I wish that I wish the show would have shown is to go more into like Preston, go more into Summer, go more into a lot of the other folks that are at the house, because they're all very dynamic.
Mhm.
As far as if any there's more like smoke between us, I don't think so. But again, with LB's, like, we're brothers, like, we fight all the time, right? Like, you know what I mean? And that's part of being brothers, right? And I think one thing I've told Preston is, look, I look up to Preston, right? So Preston is, few years older than me, and I rely on his advice. So we've gone at it before, because like when Preston says something, it holds a lot of weight, which means his advice holds a lot of weight, and his critique also holds a lot of weight. So whenever Preston says something, I get in my feelings, and I'll be like, you know what? Take me a second, and I'm like, I get it, LB. You get what I'm saying? So that's really our relationship.
How did you feel with his commentary in regards to your relationship with Jasmine? And he said that, you feel, especially you're in that moment where you were moving the table with Jason, that you feel like you can control everybody else, but you can't control Jason in that moment, even though you think you can control Jasmine.
Yeah, that's the LB I know, just keeping it real, right? And like,
Mm.
I'm not saved from the smoke because I'm his line brother, right? And I understand that. And one thing he said to me, he kept it real. He was like, look, understand that you should already know the context. Meaning, like, if you see me or hear me say something, understand that I feel comfortable saying that because I know that I love you.
Mm.
And that is Silas show controlling tendency, but that's my LB and I love him. So whenever you only hear that piece, understand that that other piece is implied. And I think for me, that's been a little bit easier to swallow, because again, his words mean a lot. But now I understand this is my line brother talking, and he's gonna be himself and keep it all the way real. Took me some time to get here. I'm not gonna cap, right? Took me some time to get here where I'm like, that's just Preston. But I appreciate his point of view, and I know it comes from a place of love.
Well, the other thing, besides people calling you controlling and a chauvinist, they're always asking about these scenes, because
Yeah.
you did mention that your father-in-law is watching the show. Does he see these scenes with
Listen,
you and Mrs. Cooper getting it on? And I'm sure you probably have heard this too, and I'll say it because I'm straight shooter. People talking about your jackhammer.
oh
Um,
my God. Look,
um, how do you feel about them sharing these scenes, and how does the in-laws feel?
I'm not no cap. Like, the first episode I watched, I was like so embarrassed. Like, do you remember that scene where I think we're playing Truth or Dare and I turned the chair around? I literally, when I watched the first episode and I saw that, I literally turned the chair around from the TV. I was like, oh my God. Because I knew my mom was watching, my little sister, all of 14 years old, was watching. I was so embarrassed. But now at this point, it's like, and he and my father-in-law joked on me about it. He was like, I know y'all are grown folks doing what grown folks do, right? So, and that's how I feel about it. Look, we're newlyweds. Prior to that, I didn't see this woman in like 6 to 8 months,
Oh.
right? So really, I was just making up for time, right? And but to get on like the particular style of sex, all I'll say on that is not everything was shown, not you know, and that's where I'll leave it at that. Not everything was shown.
And I said this, I think last week. I said, well, some people do like a jackhammer. Just saying.
Listen, I'll keep it classy and say not everything was shown. So,
I mean, a lot was shown, though.
A lot was shown. But not everything, but
what was the decision? What was the decision? Okay, we're no longer going to do in the bed. We're going to go to the closet. What was the logic behind the closet?
So I think after that Truth or Dare, and like it finally hit us that, oh my God, they hear us, right? Like I was like, you know what? If these walls are too thin, maybe there's an extra layer in the closet, right? And also, like at the time, like we figured there wasn't any, video evidence in the closet, because Kempire, honestly, the show must go on, like, and that's the honest truth.
How long were you guys married before you started filming the show?
So we got married. By the way, in exactly 2 weeks from now is our 1 year anniversary, June 26th. And still wrapping up plans. Don't let her know that. But we were married all of maybe like 2 months and like a couple of weeks. So we got married June 26th, and we started filming maybe like, second week of September, right? So yeah, it was a quick turnaround. And I think it was this roller coaster ride, and we were just, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, let's do this thing. And yeah, we probably should have hit the brakes and maybe get some TLC in beforehand.
Look, I don't know about all that. I didn't see a problem with it. I mean, I did clutch my pearls watching it, but I was just like, wait, I didn't expect it, on our cable television.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go. However, I did, I'm going to ask anytime you guys are going to call in, I'm going to ask every single week, any word on a second season and any word on a possible reunion for this first season.
Listen, that is totally up to the fans of the show, right? Andy's listening, he's watching. So tweet, Instagram, Facebook, message, fax machine, whatever you got to do to get the word out. You know what I mean?
The fax machine.
Anything you got to do to get the word out. We need a season 2. We also need a reunion because, as you can see, there's so many things that are left unsaid. Whether it's, Mariah, by the way, like Team Mariah all the way. Like we love Mariah. We'd love to see her come back. Just there's a lot that's left unsaid, and we'd love to have a reunion to express those things.
Speaking of Mariah, because I know Jasmine, that's her road dog.
Yep.
I don't know if Jasmine saw the tweet that Mariah had posted last week in regards to Amir not reaching out to her to apologize. And she found out that he knew about this when the episode aired. What are your thoughts on that? And what's Jasmine's thoughts on that? I know she's in the car. Where's she at?
Nah, she left the car actually. She was like, you know what? I don't want them to think that I'm out here feeding you lines. So so she left the car. But look, let me see how to really speak on this because things are ongoing. Look, I think how Jasmine feels about it is at the end of the day, like she's Mojo's godmother. She's the godmother of Mariah's son. Mariah has vacationed with us for a number of times. She was at her bachelor party. They slept in the car together. There's a lot of love. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that if it were up to us, right, if it was purely the Coopers, decision, Mariah would have stayed for as long as the entire time. I think one thing we tried to keep in mind was everyone's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I think what we're hearing now from everyone, Mariah's been able to talk to folks. Her and Bria was able to, hash things out, which was the primary issue. But Jasmine is in full support of Mariah. They talk all the time. And we want her and Amir to get a chance to talk. And I think to get a chance to kind of address a lot of things that are left, unsaid.
Yeah. Again, why we feel like there needs to be a reunion.
Absolutely.
2 other questions before I let you go. Speaking of Mariah, Mariah had that nice little suite, basically like a separate area of the house.
Yeah.
Who ended up going into that space?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Who ended up going in Mariah's space that she had in the house?
I'm trying to think. I think it was either Jason or Summer. I think that took over that space when they came in. Yeah.
The other question and last question, and then I'll definitely let you go, is the other big issue that we discussed on Summer House Martha's Vineyard was the beef between you and Bria accusing you of having an issue with Simon's race. And then when Simon showed up with the watches and the liquor, you guys were like, all righty. So
yeah.
First of all, let's talk about the issue with Bria and her using race in that moment, and then your big quick turnaround when he came with the liquor and the watches.
Yeah, I think with the race thing, and Bria and I had a chance to talk. First of all, it's important to sort of, and I think on that episode they clarify what I meant, but I'll clarify again for the audience. Look, you know, I'm not shy about it, right? I am a fan of the Black family. I believe that is helped and held our community stable for a long time. For our Black women that want to get married, I want them all to find that right partner, the love of their life and their happiness. So, period. Right. And it doesn't, I don't care about race, whatever it is, ethnicity, that's never been my thing. My biggest thing was I want our Black women to find that happiness in marriage if they want it. So that was the biggest thing. And Bria and I had a chance to clear up the misconception. I understood that part of it came from the fact that her and Simon probably get a lot of smoke, right, as an interracial couple from the outside world, and they get judged a lot. So I understood, I empathized that that's probably where that was coming from. As far as the watches thing, and I have to clear this up. I got to keep it real with you, right? Look, you'll see a little bit later, or you won't see. Let's just say that people got tired of like voting and got tired of meetings. So at some point, we all just agreed, like, look, we're not going to revisit this thing with Simon. So we as a house like came to, an agreement that no more house meetings, no more, because we would have to literally hold another meeting, vote if it's going to be 3-7. And we were not trying to do that. So that's why ultimately we were like, you know what? And he was adding to the chemistry of the house, right? Like put the watches aside. They are nice. I won't cap. There are some nice watches. Put the watches aside. If you could see how he just fit into guys' night, right? Like he was one of the guys, like just hanging out. And you'll see a little bit later in the season that he got some dance moves, right? And like we come up with a.
Is that what he was doing?
I listen. No shade, Simon. No shade. I think that's what he was trying to do. Shout out to my bro. But he just fit the dynamic, and for us, it's like, Bria's happy and no more, no more back and forth, because again, like we wanted to have a good time, and I know the viewers may not see that as much, but we had so many moments that were so dope, and we had fun together, and we just wanted that to continue.
Okay. One last question, and this will definitely be the last question. I said earlier who I thought I would, because I feel like the entire cast is great. However, if you had to choose someone that does not return for season 2 of Summer House Martha's Vineyard, who would you pick?
I would pick He Who Shall Not Be Named. And I think we know who that is. I think he came in like a wrecking ball and stayed all of a Uber Eats delivery. Right, he stayed as long as the Uber Eats delivery takes, and yeah, so it would be him. Absolutely, everyone else, like they,
Well, so, I do appreciate you taking time out and calling in and clarifying. People will continue to have conversations. We still have many more episodes for the season.
Yeah, we still have at least 2
more. Okay, that's amazing. Well, congrats on everything. We're gonna keep watching, keep judging, and recapping. So thank you for calling in.
And thank you for having me, Kempire.
Of course. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.
Look, come on. Thank you. That was Silas Cooper, for one of the stars. He doesn't claim to be an actor like our girl Bria, but one of the stars from Summer House Martha's Vineyard. Shout out to everyone that called.
Ooh, you bring the lighter. I got the fuse. You make a fire, I'll ask you.